Northrop writes extensively about the sugar bush and creating maple syrup. And as in the Rising and much of the other writings during the latter part of the book or mid part of the book, he he writes about his grandson Aaron. And so several things kind of struck me from this. One of which is where he details, and I'll read an excerpt from that time, um, just how his grandson followed him around and learned, much as I'm sure he did, and his grandfather and his grandfather did, the practice of creating maple syrup. Kind of tongue in cheek, he points out that rather than learning how to count because of Barney or Big Bird, he he writes about his grandson Aaron learning how to reinforce how to count, by the use of the maple sticks and the taps from the trees, and just sort of kind of makes a nice distinction between sort of modern culture and sort of the historical culture of the Anishinaabe. So it's going to be a rather long passage, but he writes here, and I'm going to cut into it. Aaron already knew about making an offering of tobacco. He had done that before. The holes his grandpa drilled were just the right height for Aaron to get a close look. He watched for a while, then handed his grandpa a small twig to clean out the shavings. Aaron put a milk jug on the tap. He used a hole his grandmother had cut into the white plastic container. After a few trees, he was telling his grandpa to hurry because he had a jug ready. Aaron watched the sap drip from the taps. He looked at a couple of the trees before he tried tasting it. Aaron caught the drips of sap on his tongue. His smile was like a warm sun to his grandparents. He soon noticed that he could walk on top of the snow while his grandparents were breaking through. While we were trudging through the snow, Aaron was dancing from tree to tree. He wanted to tap more trees, but his grandmother told him we were out of taps and jugs. The 3-year-old was still looking for good trees while walking on the deer trail. Jumping down a bit, he writes, "We sometimes boil sap out in the woods, but we didn't this year. We had firewood at home, and it didn't make much sense to haul the wood to the woods. As soon as Barney was over on TV, Aaron came outside to watch the boiling of the sap. He recognized the big black kettle from our last wild rice season. The fire burned on for 7 hours. As the sap boiled down, we added more. We knew that sitting around a fire was a good place to tell stories and hold a grandson in your lap. We boiled until we had syrup. Aaron got to taste it as it got sweeter and sweeter. He stood back as we lifted the kettle off the fire. We took the syrup inside where we filtered it. The golden brown syrup was warm as we poured it over pancakes. Aaron wants to go to the woods again. He is learning something that he can teach his grandchildren."